Russia is going to win this war. It's just a matter of what form. Russia does not want to occupy and incorporate all of Ukraine. They don't want these neo-Nazi, Azov types, Bandera types, the Russian citizens. They don't. What they want, I think, and this is my interpretation reading Putin's mind, is that they want to liberate, as they would put it, Novorossiya. Now, but getting back to Ukraine, how that translates, this is a very important point, that Russia cannot fight the war in Ukraine the way that the Israelis fought it in Gaza. They cannot fight it the way they fought the Germans, or the way the Americans fought the Germans. They just bombed the hell out of Germany. Every time you travel in Germany, I'm sure you know that there are pictures in the city hall of what Germany looked like in 1945. I studied in a University of Tübingen, not far from Stuttgart. There was not one building standing in Stuttgart in 1945. All of it was bombed out by Royal Air Force and by the Americans. So the Russians cannot bomb the way they do. Despite the pictures that are shown today on TV, if the Russians sent 600 missiles and drones on Kiev and 20 people died, that means they're terribly ineffective, because that's less than one person per missile. They hit military infrastructure. They hit it at night. If they wanted to kill as many Ukrainian workers, they would have hit it during the day. They hit it at night so that they destroy military capacity of Ukraine to wage war. This is what Putin is doing. That shows to me two things, and this is from his latest speech. Russia does not want to occupy and incorporate all of Ukraine. They don't want these neo-Nazi, Azov types, Bandera types, the Russian citizens. They don't. What they want, I think, and this is my interpretation reading Putin's mind, is that they want to liberate, as they would put it, Novorossiya. That is from Odessa, bordering on Ukraine and on Romania and Moldova, and all the way to the north, minimum Kharkov, but possibly Poltava and Sumy. The rest of it would be Ukraine, but the kind of Ukraine that would be, kind of like a Russian protectorate. They will not be a Russian federation, but they would not be a member of NATO. They would not be a member of European Union, which is the same thing. That they would be neutral, and they would be monitored. And if they, venture to violate anything, they will just occupy the rest of it and install their own government, just like Americans did numerous times in Latin America.
So on my channel, other people have compared the situation also to how Russia fought the war in Chechnya, and in the end ended up with Chechnya, of course, still being part of the Russian Federation, but basically run by, by proxy, by what's his name, the Chechen leader, Kadyrov is run by Kadyrov, which is basically, doing the bidding of the central government, and the Moscow is fine with that. So in analogy, you would say that, okay, there's still a part of Ukraine that Moscow, that Vladimir Putin and so on aims at incorporating fully into the Russian Federation in order also to consolidate, and that is manageable because the people there are sympathetic to Russia. On the other hand, the ones that are not sympathetic, you keep them over there. They're externalized, but probably under some form of Ukrainian Kadyrov type, who then will make sure that it remains independent but not a threat anymore, and then call it a day at that point.
Yes, I think so. This is something that is there's still versions of the plan possible. It could also be when I listen to the Ukrainians, emigres or refugees who used to be members of government in Ukraine before 2014. When you listen to them, and they're quite vocal on Russian media shows, what they want is Ukraine like Belarus, that they are like unified state with Russia, like Belarus, but they are still separate in terms of culture, in terms of even their currency, in terms of their domestic policies. So that the foreign policy is Russia controlled or doesn't exist at all. But then they do have local, autonomy, like Belarus does, with open borders and normal relations with Russia. This is what they would like, is the kind of a status that Ukraine survives as an internationally recognized entity, a country like Belarus is, but at the same time, it is closely allied to Russia. So this is their idea. One thing that is quite interesting in this regard is what happens to Western Ukraine, Lvov area, because this is the hotbed of a Bandera movement. And Putin said many times they don't want them in Russia. And the question is whether it would be a part of Ukraine or whether they would make it a separate territory. And then what happens with Hungarian, Romanian, and Polish minorities in that area? So kind of interesting to watch. Some speculate that the Hungarians might want to take back. It's a very small area. It's minuscule, but nevertheless, there's 500,000 Hungarians who live there. And in Chernovtsi, it used to belong to Romania. So this is interesting, how they're going to what is going to happen in that area. Is certainly not a part of the Russian Federation, but whether they're going to carve it up or make a separate state out of it, I don't know. But all of this talk, let me emphasize, Pascal, Russia is going to win this war. It's just a matter of what form it would be afterwards, and in relations to different parts of Ukraine and in relations to the Europeans.
One more fun fact on the side: history is not finished. Not only do we get new history every day, we also have a lot of not uncovered history yet. It fascinates me, and I'm telling you just because it's really fascinating that the Soviets have had a embassy in Japan the whole time, because they were, of course, neutral until the 9th of August, and nobody ever worked on that. Nobody, not the Russians, nobody outside, nobody knows what the Soviet diplomats did inside Japan between 41 to 45. It's fascinating. So yes, there's still a lot of work to be done in the archives, and you're the right person to follow also on those. So Vladimir Brovkin, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Pascal.
大家好，我是主播周玉琴。很多的朋友告诉我们，选择原版的太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌，它添加有羽衣甘蓝，健康再加分。而有睡眠困扰的朋友们，赶快选择蓝色包装这一款晚安加强版，绝对是更有感。每日克菲尔，时刻美好 ，Good Feel Good， 请上快点购为健康下单，而且要记得输入推荐代码，有额外的折扣优惠。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌基础版、晚安加强版新包装改版，内容不变，抽取更方便。要吃就吃最好的。